Hello, everybody. Welcome to this interview by Core Recruitment. Thank you very much for joining us today. Core Recruitment, as you might be aware, is an international recruitment agency, and we do mid to senior level recruitment for exec and non-exec positions. Now, a major part of what we do at Core Recruitment is about diversity and inclusion, and we're really fortunate enough to have a number of different groups, such as female leadership, LGBT, we run neurodiversity, and then we also do ethnic business leaders as well. Now, through a lot of these events that we do, we've been really lucky to be supported by some amazing people. And I'm so lucky today to be joined by Lady Phyll, who's going to be speaking to us. She's spoken at multiple of our events previously, at the Barbican and on camera and lots of different things. And she's always impactful. She's always got some interesting things to say. She's always got her finger right on the pulse. And I think she's the only person that, like, you just have a crowd of people that follow you around applauding you, don't you, Phil? Just in terms of like every time you say something, there's just kind of a rapturous round of applause afterwards, right?
Oh, well, I wish that was the case. Most rooms that I go into, they're normally like, oh my gosh, she's here again. She's going to give us grief. But, I will take it if that's what you think. And thank you so much for inviting me. I think, Core Recruitment is doing amazing work and it's doing it with intention and purpose. So I really appreciate being in this space.
It's great to have you here. So I think in the preparation for this interview series and also kind of like with International Women's Day, kind of like very much on everyone's agenda at the moment, one of the small pieces of kind of frustration feedback that we're getting from kind of lots of people is like, how do we move the dial when it comes to DEI? Are we moving backwards when it comes to that side of things? And there's lots of people talking about quotas and how do we go about this? What's your take at the moment?
Well, look, I think that there's so much happening in the world. It almost feels like it's on fire. We're seeing a global attack and backlash on the work that we do around DEI. I've often now said, I don't really care what we call it. I think that it's important that we're doing the work. However, I understand the need to name it and call it out. America sneezes and we catch the cold, and all of this stuff is happening that just feels increasingly frustrating. But I think the frustrations are valid. It's about, as you rightfully pointed out, how do we move the dial? You know, Change really kind of feels slow. And where you mention quotas, I always think to myself, oh, that feels like such a painful word. Quotas are not the whole answer. But granted, there are times where some people and organizations, companies, corporates, commercials may need to use the quota as a tool, I guess, as a way of looking at putting in a system. But what I would say is that systems for us it's never really served us. It's never been neutral. And they're kind of baked and steeped in bias. They're baked and steeped in what feels almost discriminatory. So sometimes when you need structural intervention, you need to rebalance that power. And that's what we're not seeing. So if we're going to move the dial, I think that there's a need to address these power imbalances before adding quotas. But I think if you are going to have quotas, it's got to have cultural change as well, because otherwise you can't sustain that sort of transformation that you want to see. And probably lastly, if I'm thinking off the top of my head, we need accountability leadership with pipelines that look at redistribution of opportunity and
Mhm.
again as that power. It really can't be about optics, right? It has to be about fairness.
Absolutely. Now, you've been in the DI space now for a good period of time. Can you give me a couple of examples of where you feel like you've really nudged that needle and what your kind of biggest accomplishment you're really proud of to date would be?
Yeah. I always say any accomplishment that I have achieved is not done in isolation. I need community, I need corporate, I need commercial, I need brands, and I certainly need resource and funding. And UK Black Pride is a great accomplishment in itself, but it's still growing and it's still learning and still unlearning and still bringing community together. So I think that it's understanding the language for me that has helped with any achievement. When we talk about intersectionality, in mainstream spaces, not as a buzzword or a synonym for diversity, but really understanding the depth of it is about those oppressions that have existed. You know,
Mm,
and when we look at those oppressions, if we're finding ways to, I'm going to love this using this statement, moving the needle, moving the dial, we're able to accomplish so much. And an example for me is, not just building an organization, but really helping to create cultural shift where Black queer lives are visible, and not just visible without action, because visibility without action is just lost on us. But it's got action, it's got support, it's got solidarity. And I've managed to, with community, celebrate and center our joy, not just talking about survival, but actually thriving. And I think, an accomplishment is making sure that I've got a really good strategy, a mission and a vision and a theory of change that supports it. And of course, being able to get funding in to continue doing the life-changing, transformative work that our communities need.
absolutely. I mean, I think funding was brought up a few times there, and
Mm,
it must be kind of like even more challenging than it's ever been within the community to have that voice and gain that kind of traction, right?
absolutely. I mean, look, there's funding out there, and I think that there needs to be a reprioritization
Mm,
and a redistribution of funds and how funds are given out. This can't be the same organizations, although, many organizations are so important and, crucial and critical to what's needed for today's times. But we find that those who haven't historically had that infrastructure don't get the funding because maybe they're not a CIC or a charity, or they're a very small startup, but they're going to do that transformative work. So redistribution of power again, reprioritization, and delving deep into maybe asking the questions about what is it that you need to fund, and asking the people who are the funders and donors, what does a good funding application look like that allows me to still do the work?
100%. With UK Black Pride this year, you're going to go East London again? Quick exclusive?
We
You
are.
are?
Yes, we are. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to be at the same venue because, in London, any bit of green space, there are, I don't want to say unaffordable, but I said it, houses that go up. So the land has been taken, but we will be in East London, and watch this space for more news coming up on UK Black Pride.
Love that. It's a great day out. You have to sign up for it, no matter kind of like if you're in the community, not in the community. It's an amazing day out. I went and took my children last year, and they saw Phil in full regalia being followed around by camera crew for the whole day, and they were just like, "Dad, how do you know that woman? She's insane." Yeah, I mean they ask about you all the time, so it's a really good thing.
Well, it's a highlight getting a big hug from them. So.
If you've got to hug your head of me, they're teenagers, my God. Now, looking at what's happening, you mentioned like the US sneezes, we catch a cold, and looking at what's happening at the moment in the US is, it's pretty shocking some of the things which are happening out there.
Mm.
What impact is this having on the UK? And I mean, is this an opportunity for the UK to be standing up a little bit and kind of like, being a bit of a beacon of hope for other countries?
Yes, of course, of course. You know, we we look to the US a lot for, I guess, inspiration, direction, and we see them as a beacon of hope. But now with such global attacks and funding being withdrawn, I think what I would love to see more of is organizations reaffirming its commitment to diversity, equity, equality, and inclusion. And of course, the understanding of intersectionality being woven through. And what that should look like, let's say, better resources, funding or support in kind. It should look like diversifying your workforce so that your organization has voice and agency and can speak better to the lived experiences of what happens in community. And of course, if it's a corporate, I would say when you are reaffirming your commitment, make sure that you bring in your ERGs or your BRGs and really understand what are the objectives, what are the, strategic pinpoints that you really want to see impacting. And that's what I think change will look like if we are, speaking truth to power about what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking closer to home, the LGBTQIA network in London is great. I mean, it still needs work, but a scale of kind of like, gradients and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, we might moan about it, but it's like we have a great community based in London, but it can feel a little bit like a club or bubble when you go to the events and it's a lot of the same faces and all of that side of things. How do you think we, A, broaden the appeal across the rest of the UK and also try and engage some new audiences and access to more people and access to different types of people and potentially access to even more funding as well?
Mm. Well, I mean, look, you're doing this, and you mentioned at the start the Barbican. It was such a beautiful celebration for Black History Month, but had our allies there to understand the importance of Black History Month, and you brought so many different groups of people together, from charities to corporates to community to influencers, whether it's around hospitality. I think that we need to do more of that.
Mm,
If our networks are only speaking to people in London who already feel marginally safe, then it's a social club. It's not a network. So we need to be a bit more innovative and creative about the spaces that we create to hear different voices. And we need to be uncomfortable in reaching out to communities that haven't historically had that voice in the spaces we think are really good for LGBTQIA plus people, or for women, or for disabled, or for neurodiverse people. And it means, I guess, reaching out and speaking to different people and asking them, we don't want to fix you. Absolutely not. We want to know how we can support better and what we can learn in turn.
yeah, absolutely. Are there any organizations out there other than the ones that you're involved with that you think really nail it on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, well, there's individuals, and we've got Black Mental Minds, Health Matters. We've got Mind, we've got, and they deal with, the therapeutic nature of how we receive therapy and how we can navigate. Then we've got Micro Rainbow, but I am involved there, and this is around, our refugees and those seeking asylum.
Oh, wow.
Um, we've got so many different industry groups. We've got queer nomads and queer travel. So they are bringing together an array of people that want to travel and explore and connect whilst being queer, not just Black. We've got, oh, so many. We've got LGBT Foundation. We've got, the DCT, which I'm going to mention, the DIVA Charitable Trust, and
Mm,
I'm not going to mention UK Black Pride, because we are this umbrella that has so many organisations that come together doing the work. So if you wanted a specific on, say, human rights, I would say Kaleidoscope Trust, the Commonwealth Equality Network,
yeah.
Human Dignity Trust, and so much more.
Excellent, excellent. Now, Lady Phyll, you're known a lot in the UK for kind of like a lot of the incredible work you do, a lot of the incredible speaking you do, how you put a focus on the issues of the day. But I don't think a
Mhm.
lot of people are aware of how much you do internationally. I mean, you cannot walk down the street in Tokyo, can you, babe? You know, I mean, I'm joking, but it's like, but literally, like, can you tell us a bit about some of the work you do outside of the UK as well?
Yeah, so I did just mention the Commonwealth Equality Network and Kaleidoscope Trust, and these are two organisations that I am so passionate about, and it's the human rights work. I think they're, I wouldn't just call them a global initiative, but I would say they are working so hard to work with partners in the global south, primarily Africa, Asia, the Caribbean and the Pacific, which I mustn't forget. And for me, I guess working alongside activists in Africa, in the Caribbean, in Asia and the Pacific, it's taught me a great deal of humility. You know, these are the people who are putting their head above the parapet every single day, risking their own lives. And what we do with those human rights defenders is to not tell them how their work should go, but to create meaningful, lasting relationships and strategies around how they can overcome, how they can, smash colonial era laws that
Mm,
criminalize LGBT plus people. And I think beside the humility, it's about looking at these hostile environments where they are risking everything and looking at how we connect global solidarity along the way. I One of the things that I feel deeply about is making sure that there's access and looking at how we amplify, how we fund and support in ways that is not challenging, but also how we show solidarity in positive ways and not just we've waved a placard and yes, we're upset, because they still have to go back to their everyday lives. Whilst protesting is good, whilst strategy is good, funding is good, we need to weave those things all together. And I guess that's what my work does. It brings together the understanding and also the nuances and complexities of what is happening abroad and joining it up with those who may walk through the corridors of power that can change that trajectory by changing policy, by helping to change legislation.
absolutely. Now, one of the brilliant things about you, Lady Phyll, and like when we did our first interview together, which was a long time back, I think it had been about 2 years after you just declined the opportunity to have an honour from the Queen. And one of the reasons that you'd given for this was about that colonial impact of government and all of that side of things. Now, I know that there have been, I mean, whether it's forward or backwards or whatever it is, but there have been lots of changes in that space recently. Have you ever, do you think that we're in a better place? Would you consider that honor if it came up again, or have you seen anything that would change your perception of that at all, or not really?
Well, I look at things that's half a dozen of one and one of the other. I I take nothing away from anyone that's received their OBE, CBE, MBE, because it's an accomplishment of what people have achieved. I just personally don't believe the honours system is fair, it's equitable, and it doesn't necessarily shine a light on everyone that's doing this great work. Also, for
Mm,
me, I think whilst the UK still has and presides over many countries in the Commonwealth, and there are still colonial era laws that exist, that the UK does have a responsibility to help support in changing that, not imposition, but in changing that. I don't think that I would still accept anything that elevates itself over the people that I serve. And yes, things are changing, but then we also look at some of the other backlash against our trans and non-binary siblings who are literally fighting for survival every single day. So I enjoy doing the work that I do, and I enjoy working with the people that I work with, and maybe that accolade is not for me and maybe for somebody else. I think that's the most diplomatic way that I can put it.
That was a great answer. Now, a lot of people look up to you for guidance, support, and I mean, just that was a perfect answer. But I mean, have you ever thought about politics? Because I think you'd be bloody amazing, to be honest with you.
Well, I am in politics, right? Because I think community, not I think, I believe and I know that, community is organizing and it is political. It's shifting culture, shifting the dial and making sure that our bodies and our minds, which have often been used as political pawns, that we're trying to overcome that. We're trying to, smash the patriarchy, we're trying to eradicate racism, and all of those things are hugely political. So I think whether I'm in parliament is a different question, right? So I believe deeply in influencing systems and processes and the things that feel broken for my communities. So yeah, it is political for me. And I would just say I would want to be in the place where I'm most useful.
Well, that wasn't a confirmation or denial there. I think
Did
I
I
think
answer that like a politician?
I think it just makes me think even more. You want to run to be an MP and even more than that one day. You would have 100% of my backing and support. And I think a lot of other
Thank
people's as
you.
well. Now, obviously, the UK is under massive financial pressure currently. We've mentioned about the funding side of things, and I think within a lot of organisations at the moment, the DEI side of things kind of like, comes under scrutiny as an additional budgetary support. How do we
Mhm.
combat that? How do we push it up the agenda? And have you seen any organisations and companies doing more in the current situation and getting something back from it?
That's a big question. So I've seen co companies really thinking about, that reaffirming the commitment to D&I, as I mentioned. And they're doing it in ways where they are bringing in community, they are listening more to their staff and, the people that are delivering on particular projects. And they're trying to ensure that the resources go to the right places. We had a campaign with NYX Professional Makeup for about 3 years with UK Black Pride, and that worked so well for us because they listened to what we needed. They understood that they could learn from us, and they understood that we required, some resourcing and structural support, which was super helpful. But one of the companies that we're currently working with now is Bleecker. And
Hmm.
Bleecker and UK Black Pride have sat down to, one, bring our teams together so we know each other, because that's about relationship building so that we can both buy into the understanding of what people need. The woman behind Bleecker is called Zan, and she just does an amazing job with supporting her teams. So it felt like a meaningful partnership. It's not a tick box. It's not a nice to have. It's an understanding of the current times that we're in, of the financial pressures. It's testing the values, and that's what we're doing with Bleecker. It's about that innovation, the drive, the talent, the everything that falls under, your HR and your diversity and equality. But what it does more than anything, it brings people and voices to the forefront. And it really is about embedding inclusion into that governance piece that we often don't speak about enough. And governance has to be a huge part of what we do because it's about leadership, it's about procurement, it's about accountability. And when we get that right, we can go on to do so much more. But I think it has to be done in these current times in collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Now, failure is very much part of life and happens to all of us. And I think it's important that we talk a little bit about failure because everybody's living their perfect Instagram lives and their perfect things on LinkedIn. And every day is a sunny day. And aren't we all fantastic and amazing and have filters on all of our cameras and all of that kind of stuff? So, can you tell us about something which maybe hasn't gone as well, how you dealt with it, and maybe what you learned from it?
Yeah. I mean, even the word failure feels
Yeah,
quite harsh, doesn't it? But
yeah,
I
it
really
does.
understand what you mean in that. I like to call things maybe areas of improvement because we're constantly learning, and something that may have not succeeded doesn't mean it won't succeed in maybe 6 months' time. But there's quite a few things that I've done that, haven't materialized, i.e., like partnerships, where I've wanted this partnership to work and thought it was going to be all about the money and the funding that we get through. But that funding became irrelevant because there wasn't enough consultation with community. And that is a big failure, to overlook people before profits. So I've always said to myself now, following some of those, I guess, trying times and
Mhm.
finding yourself and trying to really put things in place, that I will always, always consult community. I will always make sure that I'm hearing the voices of the people that I'm saying I'm setting out to serve and support, and put things in place and look at systems that benefit them, rather than just think about we need the money, so we've got to do X, Y, and Z. Um, and I guess that's sometimes a heavy weight to carry, when you think you can see across the trees that this is what we need and you want to go for it. But sometimes we have to step back, reflect, and understand that, you know, delegation, understanding resilience, understanding the clarity and the mission that was set out, has to include people. It cannot be done in isolation. And, you know, also understanding, which is a hard thing to do, not every opportunity is going to align with your purpose. And for me, as a Black, lesbian, African woman, I'm like, there's an opportunity, this is great. But actually, does it align with my values? Does it align with my purpose? And if it doesn't, then we should be allowed to say no, because actually, no comes as a form of protection for us.
Absolutely. That's a really good answer. Um, in terms of looking back on your earlier career, and you've got a lot of career to go, so like, this is not the
Thank
legacy
you.
question, but like, but in terms of looking back kind of like at your earlier career, like, was there anything that you wish you'd maybe done differently, a job that you stayed in for too long, a situation that you didn't accept, something that you wish that you kind of learned from kind of like earlier on in your career that would have pushed you forward a little bit further?
Mm. I think that I've stayed the right length of time in each role that I've been in. Um, I'm not somebody that has regrets, because I think that each path that I've gone down has taught me something else about the transformation or the new role that I'm going to go into next. If it was more about learning, I would say I wish I would have known how to ask for more help, because burnout is very real. Um, Sometimes you think you don't have the diction or can't articulate it well enough, but there is somebody sat next to you or somebody across the waters that has done this already and has done it before you and has the tools. So I wish I would have asked for some help earlier on. And now I'm better at saying, can core recruitment help me find this space? Or actually, I want to do this. Because there's no harm in asking. You may not get it, but you know that you've asked for it. There's a wonderful pool of resource out there. And yeah, I would say that's what I wish I would have done better.
Asking for help. Yeah, absolutely. Linda Riley, I am a massive fan of as well. She's an incredible lady, incredible
She loves you
individual.
dearly.
Don't not go that far, but but what she's achieved with Diva is amazing. And you've just joined, obviously, the Diva board. For those who are watching who might not know, can you just kind of like tell us a little bit about Diva and your new role there and what you guys are looking to achieve?
Yes, sure. So I haven't joined the board.
Oh,
I
sorry.
have joined as the new executive director. I have an amazing board who are doing great things to look at, the governance and securing the charity and, really homing into what we need. But DIVA Charitable Trust was formed as, I guess a body that looks after particular pillars like the Diva magazine, Lesbian Visibility Week, the Diva Awards, some of our work around research and insights to knowing what are the needs, aspirations, and hopes of LGBTQI plus women and non-binary people. So my role, I guess, is really to look at how we do this and how we do it well, positioning ourselves with good language, strong community, working in partnership with some great stakeholders, but telling stories through our Diva magazine and making sure it has voice and agency, having the data and real lived evidence and data points that will allow us to think about how we campaign and organize and mobilize around some of the pressing issues that are affecting our communities. And of course, the awards, this is about celebrating our achievements and really homing into joy and what that looks like when you're working in a charity or a corporate or as an individual that is changing the times and being an absolute trailblazer and change maker. So there's lots happening. I've got my hands full, and I've said to my darling friend Linda that don't worry, it's in secure hands. I've got it.
She's in Miami too much to notice now, though, isn't she? She's always got
She's on a
sunshine.
cruise. I
She's on a
think, I
cruise.
can't keep up
She
with what
works very
cruise she's
hard. She
on.
works very hard. She
She
works very
does.
hard. I
She
take it
really
back. I take it
does.
back. I guess for my last question, and just kind of like, and it would be really great to get your insight and advice for this because we meet lots of different people from lots of organizations
Mhm,
who are charities, and they always say that they've got their day job and their gay job, or they're kind of like,
mhm,
where they get to do a little part of their job. And like, I think, like, I meet so many incredible people such as yourself who've really managed to carve a niche and make a living in what they're really passionate about and what is their drive and what is their ambition and all of that kind
mhm.
of stuff as well. So it all just completely manages to align. And you can see the passion coming out from you when you kind of like speak about it. It must be fantastic from a reward, kind of like personal perspective. But if there was somebody who's working within an organization and wants to take that step that you've taken, whether it's female leadership or the community stuff or whichever kind of like facet that they want to go into, what advice would you give them about kind of like working on something that they're really passionate about?
Yeah. Do your homework first. Understand what it means to enter into that space. So you're not having to shrink yourself, mold yourself, or you're not going to set yourself up for failure. Um, I would say talk to people that are already in that space that are doing what you might want to do. I think all too often what happens is that there's this competitive nature of I'm doing D&I here, that person's doing D&I there. I believe there's space for all of us,
Hmm.
absolutely space for all of us. So let's speak and continue to utilize the conversation about, and I'm going to use your saying, how we move the dial, how we move that needle, because one person can't do it alone. So, let's talk with each other about what you're doing that might be different, but we can synergize together. Um, I would say make sure that when you are speaking to people, understand what the current political climate looks like in doing this work, what the economic climate looks like as well, because I wouldn't advise anyone, oh, just leave your job and jump straight into it because, bills have to be paid and so forth, and families need to be fed. but it might take a staggered approach.
Yeah.
But write down what it is you want to do and what you want to achieve and what that impact will look like, and maybe put some timelines alongside it. And even if the goalpost shifts a little bit, it's okay. You're still working towards that goal while speaking to people, whilst, action planning and setting goals.
Excellent. Love all of that. Lady Phyll, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for running over things with us. I really do appreciate it. As I said, this was a really good triple header kind of like interview. So we crammed a lot into a 30-minute
Yes, we
session.
did.
So I really, really, really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you. And thank you for all that you do as well. So I'm still giving you your flowers, and that's what we need to do to continue amplifying people that are doing great work.
Oh, thank you very much.